So welcome everyone to this live webinar. Recessions are the best time to start up. That's what everyone says. And here we are, both of us batchmates at NITI, started our entrepreneurial journey in 2008. So we are like the class of 2009, hit by the recession, started our own journey and startups. So I am Paresh Masade. I am founder and CEO of Vaave. We help educational institutions with their alumni relations. So we work with close to about thousands of educational institutions within India and about 16 countries abroad. And I have with me Mandeep. Mandeep is the CEO of Cashify, the largest smartphone-centric brand in India, providing an all-round mobile care for your smartphone. So if your smartphone gets broken up or the screen broken up, anything happens to your smartphone, they are the ones you should go to. So Cashify has about 800 employees right now and 1,500 serviceable locations. And so they also raised about 22 million. That's close to about 150 plus crores from market investors like CDH Investments, Bloom Ventures, and Bessemer Venture Partners, and many others actually. So here we go. Welcome to the live interaction, Mandeep.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll shut down this screen and then we can see you live. Yes.
Sure. Okay. Thanks. Can you hear me properly?
Yes.
Okay.
So Mandeep, so to begin with, let's start with where it all started. Basically, recessions are usually hard, and we joined the college with expectations. And while the college was all good, during the placement season, it was an emotional toil. Yeah. So how did it all begin? And you were the one who got placement in one of the most sought after companies, Lehman Brothers. You were the one, probably like it was the company during the placement season, right?
Yeah.
And then suddenly within a couple of months, everything changed. So can you just quickly give us a background about a bit before your Lehman Brothers and how did the journey happen to decision to make a startup?
Sure. Thanks, Paresh, for inviting me. It's a really great opportunity to connect with a lot of people who are right now thinking of starting up. And the topic rightly says that, recessions are the best times to start up. And my 2 cents on this is when you have very little to lose, there's only one way to go, and that's to go up. Okay. And that's what I realized back in 2009 that, look, now, I'll give you a background. When I was interning with Lehman, it was a very interesting time because at NITI, it was one of the most sought after internships, as you rightly said. I also had an option to take in either P&G, I think there was Marico and Colgate. I always dreamt of, doing marketing after I graduate. And that's a dream I came to college with. But then I thought that finance is something that I don't know jack shit about. So at least let me get an internship and see whether do I like finance or not. And at that time, I thought I made the best choice available. In the 2 months, I actually saw the beginnings of Lehman Brothers' demise. I remember the first 2 weeks at the internship, we used to have lavish lunches and lavish dinners with the partners, with the VPs. They would take us out or they would like 7-course meals in the office. And by the time we ended the internship, I distinctly remember in the last 2 weeks, all we used to get for lunch was 1 sandwich and 1 box of real juice. That was also numbered. Okay, so if there were 10 people in the room, you would have only 10 sandwiches and 10 juices. So, the initial, I could sense that things are not going right. And when eventually in October 2008, when Lehman went under, I immediately called up the HR who was managing us and asked that, look, we were talking about a placement opportunity. Do you think that's still going to happen? And, his answer to me was, boss, right now my focus is to save my job. I'm not thinking about any placement offers. And anyways, there were talks of Nomura taking over Lehman. Nice. So at that time, there was nothing that came my way. When the placement season started, I distinctly remember I got, I think, 2 job interviews. And out of the 2, 1 job interview was a guy called me for an interview only because I had Lehman Brothers written on my CV. And somehow he wanted to ridicule and see, okay, you were the one who interned at Lehman, blah, blah, blah. And I felt so, this is my career at stake, and this guy wants to make fun of the situation. But nevertheless, what I did was, I think, since I wasn't getting anywhere on the placement scene in 2008 December, I distinctly remember that's where our placements were on. I took a call one day that I want to go back and start to figure out something on my own.
Sure.
And even from my undergrad days, I had this thing in my mind that I want to start up something. The initial thought was that I'll work for 2 or 3 years, gain some experience, and then take a plunge.
Right.
But then when things were not happening, I said, okay, let me just go back, figure out something and start something of my own. So on 6th of January, I think I just took a couple of my friends out for an evening, and at around 11:30, I told them that, look, guys, tomorrow morning, I'm heading back home. No more placement shit for me. I'm done. So everybody was shocked. So I came back to, my hometown. And that's where, I started figuring out what next to do. So the journey was, there was a lot of uncertainty.
Right.
Okay. All you got to do is look at the positive side, believe in yourself, because at the end of the day, I thought I was educated from a very good institute, and this is just a phase. So it's going to pass. Today or tomorrow, I will get a job. If not, I will figure out something of my own. So that's how it started. I will, would love to go deeper into it as we go forward.
So, guys, to give a context, so what happened was probably in the month of September, October is when the recession hit, and the placements usually happen in the month of December. Like the end of December is for laterals, and by Jan is usually our placements, freshers. And the companies that used to take probably like 8 to 10 guys started taking 1 or 2, and the ones who actually and started going back as well. The companies who actually visited campus started saying that we are not hiring anymore. So that's how the recession feels like. And the placements usually that happen within like 3 days within campus for NITI specifically took almost 30 days. Like for me, I waited in the campus for till 25th, I think. 25th is when I started I wanted to go back to Hyderabad and start up a food chain. Actually, I came back, put that as a project report. Mandeep sir helped me there, and so I started working on. So yeah, but that was the phase where till Jan as well, like even 40, I think not even 40% of the batch was placed, and things are bad, really bad. But at the end of the day, everyone got placed. That's a different story. Most of them actually got placed. But yeah, so Mandeep, going back to the decision, like. So what went on the decision of wanted to start? You mentioned that, hey, you call your friends and said that you'll go back to the house and start working. But again, how did this idea come up? How did you say that, yeah, so from an investment banking profile, that's a very sexy job to be in, to probably a waste management company. That's no one even thinks about starting a waste management company. So how did this entire journey happen, and what made you take that decision specifically?
Sure. First of all, I would like to bust the myth that investment banking is sexy. It's not.
Sure.
Okay. So I remember not seeing, the sunrise or sunset for 2 months. And, it's not actually a great job to begin with. Life of an analyst is really sucky.
Right.
You got to do all the shitty work of making presentation and crunching the numbers. So it's not as beautiful as it looks. Now, coming on back, onto your question, how did this idea come? So back in 2009, when I went back home, while looking at various businesses, I always had, an inclination on recycling. I'll give you a perspective. My father used to work in a company which was recycling aluminium.
Right.
And during my summer holidays and winter vacations, I used to go to the scrapyard in the factory. And not just to boast, but I learned a very important skill. I can pick up any metal and tell you whether this is iron, this is copper, this is aluminium. So that is, I had actually spent a lot of time segregating various metals. So I had that inclination towards, can we recover something valuable from waste?
Right.
So this was there in my head when I went back. And somewhere down the line, somewhere even in the back of my head, I always wanted to set up the largest recycling company in India.
Okay.
So we started, I with one of my friends, we started working on this idea. what are the different waste streams can we actually, recover value from? So there was solid waste, which was, heavily government dependent. You had to have a lot of government contracts to actually get solid access to solid waste. Then there was water waste, which was also, a state subject to a large extent, very difficult for a newcomer like me to just get into. Then there was a third waste stream, which was very upcoming and nobody was actually paying a lot of attention to, which was e-waste. Even today, electronic waste is one of the largest growing waste streams across the world. But even back in 2009, it was a big enough problem, right. But not a lot of people were actually focusing on it. So we decided, okay, let's try to build something in e-waste. Although we were trying to do some projects in other waste streams. I can give you an example. We did a small study for Indian Railways also to figure out how much waste comes out from a Shatabdi or a Rajdhani and can you recover value from it. Right. So we did that. We went on few journeys on trains, did all the reports, submitted, but then got stuck in the red tape and bureaucracy. So that's where we thought, okay, we will do something which does not have a lot of government intervention. Okay, so e-waste was something which is very niche. What we started doing, interestingly, is there were a lot of e-waste conferencing that were happening at that time. And since I was still a student of NITI, I would just flash my ID card and get an access to these conferences free of cost, which would, otherwise charge 5,000 rupee, 10,000 rupee entry. And our strategy was that when you're sitting in that conference and people are talking, you ask one difficult question and get yourself registered in front of the panelists.
Yes.
So we did that. Every conference you would ask the stupidest or the most difficult question in the group, get the attention of the panelists. And during the lunch break, we would go to them and say, okay, we're trying to work on a project in e-waste. Would you be my mentor or an advisor? And thankfully, I found out that a lot of people are very open. When they see a youngster or a college student trying to do something, a lot of people want to help because everybody loves to give gyan. The way I and you are going to give gyan today, everybody loves to do that. Okay, so people would call us to their offices, help us with a lot of things, and that's how we built our strategy on what is it that we want to do, and we started building a small network of people which were influential in this game. And from those guys, then we started getting contacts on, what are the industries that we can focus on. And soon, I think within the first 3 to 4 months of our, trying to work something on, we got a contract with Nokia.
Okay.
So Nokia at that time was trying to build a supply chain for reverse supply chain for end of life mobile phones and chargers and batteries, etc. So we met them, we built the whole supply chain project with them, and thankfully they gave us our first consulting assignment, which was, I think, 50,000 rupees a month at that time. And there were two of us, me and my business partner. So we started surviving on that and working on that particular project. And from there, a lot of doors opened up.
Right. So what I hear you, Mandeep, say is that specifically there was some domain expertise that you already built over the journey that was probably not just before starting up, but you had an deep expertise into a domain. And then probably as things start going bad, you just picked up one of them and started working on. So what, it was a consulting assignment specifically?
So we had to design the whole reverse supply chain for a end of life mobile phone from a customer to the point when it goes to recycling and you do the metal recovery.
So should I understand that is like, hey, because of that consulting assignment, it was very important because it helped you with the cash flows.
Yes. See, at that time, cash flows were important, but were not the most important thing. We were living at our homes with our parents. So, it wasn't that we had to worry about the rent or where the food is going to come from. Right. And thankfully, we got some space in MDI Gurgaon to set up our office. So one of our friends had, who was a student of MDI, had gotten an incubation in MDI Gurgaon. And what we did was we just barged into his office and said, okay, that's your desk. I'm getting my desk here, and I'm sitting here and start running my company from here. Sure. So when you're starting up, you have to take all these decisions. You have to be brash. You have to not worry about what the world is going to think about you. You have to be shameless and ask for whatever you want. And if you don't ask, you don't get it.
we have a lot of students watching our webinar today. I think that's probably a takeaway for all of them. Hey, the next 6 months, if there's no job outside, you're going to sit at your home. You're anyway not going to go outside, and probably the best time to start up. You don't have a lot of expenses as such, and that's even the best time because you don't require a lot of investment as well to start off with. Right. That's a takeaway for me, I think, from this specific thing. Now, tell us more about, like, say, hey, you started with supply chain and consulting domain specifically, but Cashify today is a more of a B2C product. So you started with B2B assignments and things. So how did the idea to pivot come in? Like, how did you pivot the entire idea to start up and B2C portal? I guess it was named Reglobe then.
Yeah. So what we did was we did the consulting assignment for 1.5 to 2 years. So we worked with companies like Nokia, HP, Canon. So building their reverse logistics for their printer cartridges program, their mobile phone program. Then we realized that, just consulting won't cut it out for us because there was a limit to, what assignments you would get. I mean, we just 2 young grads out of B school, not even 2 years of experience. So we hit a roof. Post that, what we did was we had set up our own recycling unit of recycling scrap tires. So they're automobile tires. So at the end of life of automobile tires, they typically get shredded and are used in brick kilns where they manufacture bricks for your household, building material, and they're burnt in open atmosphere. So we figured out a technology where we could extract oil from these scrap rubber tires. So we set up that technology in, near Delhi, and we started our factory. So we did that for 2 years. We made that profitable, and we exited that business somewhere in 2013.
Okay.
Now in 2013, we wanted to, once we exited that business and we were sitting on some money of our own, which we made after exiting that business, we thought, what is it that we want to do next? Okay. So the challenges why we exited the previous business was, there were scale issues. It was not a hockey stick business where, if you put in an investment or effort for the first X years, you can grow tremendously after that. In a typical factory kind of environment, for every time you want to enhance the capacity, you want to invest the same amount of money. So there were certain reasons why we wanted to exit. We had learned whatever we wanted to. And 2013, one funny incident happened that, me and my partner, both of us, we were going somewhere. We parked our car outside a mall, and somebody broke into our car and took our laptops. So we had both our laptops lying in the car, and foolish of us, we kept the laptops on the back seat. Somebody broke open and took the laptops with him. Now we had some important business meetings or business, travel coming up. So we thought we need our laptops. So we went to Nehru Place, which is a market in Delhi, which is like the largest electronics market in, I think, Asia. So we wanted to buy cheap laptops, and by cheap, we wanted to, get our hands onto second-hand laptops because we did not have a lot of money. And that is where we realized that as an individual, you have to buy a second-hand electronic gadget in India, it was super difficult back in 2009. No, this is 2013. It was super difficult. There were no warranties. You would just go into a shop, the guy would show you a laptop, you test it then and there, you would bring it back. The moment you would take it out from that shop, there was no warranty, no guarantee. So it was all your risk. So that's where we realized that there could be a play where if you build a trustworthy supply of second-hand gadgets in the country, there would be a lot of people willing to buy.
Right.
Because there were a lot of startups coming up. Students typically look for, low-cost alternatives. So we thought inherently there would be a demand. Let's figure out if we could actually build the whole supply chain. So that is where the idea came from in 2013. And we quickly implemented a small store online. We used to buy second-hand laptops, old laptops from Nehru Place in bulk, say 30 laptops, 50 laptops, get them repaired in our small office that we had set up and put them online to sell. And to our surprise, we started getting a lot of demand. Right. People would, want to buy a second-hand laptop at 50% of the price. We would give a free bag, 6-month warranty, etc. And we started seeing the products moving out. And then we hit another challenge. The other challenge was, now that we had demand going up, the supply started becoming a bottleneck, because every time we would go to these Nehru Place shops, they would start jacking up the price, because they knew that if I'm coming back, they have a demand and they can, push the prices up.
Yeah.
And that is when we thought, okay, we have demand, we don't have supply. What is the bigger problem? Okay, so if you look at the way Indian markets are structured, there are hundreds and thousands of small shops which are selling second-hand products. But there is no single supply source of these products coming into these, which is assuring the supply of these small merchants. The second thing is that people like you and I, we find it very difficult to sell our products. So if we have an old laptop lying at our house or an old mobile phone, we don't know where to go. And the classified sites like OLX and Quicker, back then, there would be unnecessary calls, people haggling with you on price, etc. So there is an opportunity. If we could build a supply source, give a platform where you can sell your devices easily, there would be significant supply that we can generate. And on the other side, on the demand side, we don't have to go to the end customer directly. There are these merchants who already have shops. They will be able to sell these devices in different parts of the country. All we need to do is manage the supply. And that's where the genesis of Reglobes/Cashify happened. We built our own pricing algorithm, pricing engine. We got the website done. And over the last 6-7 years, the business has taken multiple shapes and forms to where it is today.
Sure. So the primary question that most of the students who would probably also want to start up, the question would is, hey, how do I get the initial funding or initial investment? And you mentioned about how do you actually got some initial investment, but like even otherwise, what do you suggest? Like how can someone as a student find out his initial setup to start off with?
Well, I think, in our case, thankfully, in our first business, we did not need any initial funding. Only in the Cashify business, we needed some funding, but thankfully we sold a business before that in between, and we were sitting on some cash of our own. Now, the important thing while you're starting up is that you need to figure out, or you need to understand that investment is not only financial investment. Okay. The most important investment that you have to make is your time and your full focus and energy. Now, I meet a lot of young kids who say that, I'm working in so-and-so company, and as a part-time, I'm starting this company. Would you support me financially? Now, I'm old school. I feel that if you commit yourself to something, you need to give in your 100%. And that means your 100% time and energy. I don't think that you can run a business or, initiate a startup part-time. So unless you commit yourself 100% to a particular purpose in life, I don't think it is easy for anyone to raise capital. The second thing is that the initial capital typically comes out of your own pocket or your family or your friends. Okay, so you need to find the first set of fools. The first set of fools are always your family and friends. It is very difficult to, just go to a random stranger and get money for your initial business startup. Even in our case, we got money from our parents for our first business, the second business, the factory business that we did. And then we got to the banks and raised some debt capital. In the third business, which is the current business, whatever money we had earned from our previous business, we invested everything. Like not even a penny was kept for ourselves. We invested everything in the business. And that is how we were able to build a platform which we could take to investors.
Right.
Unfortunately, ideas do not get funded. Of course, in some other parts of the world, ideas do get invested, but now the times have changed. And in today's scenario, none of the ideas would get, get investment for sure. But in India, you have to show a prototype. You have to show some working model and some line of sight of a paying customer for you to go to an investor and, seek their money.
And traction majorly, basically.
Yeah.
So for guys who would probably want to start off again, so one thing that we usually say is that start off with something with probably very low capital requirement or not a capital intensive business to start off with. And because there's going to be definitely a slowdown in the market and it's going to be like at least 6 months where you actually, there's no other investor who actually look out for this investments will actually dry out. There's nothing that investment committee will entirely not look out investing at you, not probably even angel investors. Angel investors may still come out, and your friends and family may still put in market because they're not putting in share markets right now. They may come back and put in some money, but it would also mean that so if you just show some traction in the next 6 months, and when stints probably starts flying back in the month of Jan or Feb or something, and you have something with a user base, traction, and everything ready, so you'll definitely find this friends and fools probably who can actually put in some money and give you that push that's required. So this is the time when you should actually spend on building that prototype and focus on getting that traction. Traction is the major important part that you probably want to focus on.
And I think this is also a time to, build the product. I mean, a lot of talent would be available over the next few months. Unfortunately, a lot of companies are laying off people.
Yes.
A lot of smart people would be there out in the market with a lot of skills. If you don't have the coding skills, you may be able to find somebody who's either willing to work part-time because he has a lot of time on his hand, or he's been laid off recently. So you gotta be opportunistic in these times and grab the opportunities with both of your hands. If you have an idea, this is the time to diligently build the product. So, and once the markets open up, I mean, you can try and test it.
So Mandeep, this brings in a very interesting question. Basically, this is a time when you find a lot of people who will not probably get jobs, and it's the best time to rope in people to work on your idea and convince them. Yeah. And it's probably then selling your vision is more important now. So it means that, like, coming back to your journey again, how did you find your co-founders? And also add on, what makes you sell the vision to your co-founder? Because they'll have to work for you, living their job or probably almost at free. So how do you do that?
Well, I think, I personally believe that if you're looking out for a co-founder, typically the co-founder finds you in a scenario where it is destiny which brings you together. I would just give you my example. We are 3 co-founders now. One of them I studied with undergrad school in Chandigarh, and in 2009 he was in Paris at the peak of recession, and he didn't get a job. His visa did not get extended, so he had to come back. And back in undergrad school, I remember we used to spend nights talking about various business ideas, and with the vision that one day we'll start something together. So I called him up when he was back in India, and I said that, look, I'm working on this idea on waste management. Would you like to explore? And it was just an initial, thought. We met, we started doing our research together. And fortunately, I did not have to sell a lot. Ultimately, while we were doing the things together, it became our common, dream. And one thing that I've learned in life, if 2 or 3 people, they go through the same misery together, same problems together, and if you a lot of students are here, your best friends would be the ones with whom you underwent ragging in your first year. While you were standing in the same room with the seniors taking your case, the people who were right next to you at that time, the chances are most of them are your best friends because they lived through that dilemma and that phase. So at this time, if you have a few friends, all of them who are in the same phase, not doing well in life, I think the ideas will emerge once you start talking. And if you both have, along with passion, you have a certain purpose behind which you are, running, I think you don't need a lot of persuasion. And our third co-founder was actually we used to work in a co-working space back in 2012. And this guy used to run a services company. So we had outsourced all our tech and IT to this guy. So we were working together on a product, and since he knew everything, he actually built it from scratch. Once the traction came in, we said that anyways we'll have to get a co-founder or a CTO on board. Why don't we approach him? And he became a co-founder. So I think you need to find people who have a common sense of purpose, who believe in solving a particular problem. Not just, you are passionate about something and you want to just jump behind it. You need to have a vision on, am I solving somebody's problem? And all the great businesses in the world, in my opinion, have solved some or the other problem. So if you have that thought process along with passion to work 12 to 16 hours a day, to fulfilling that purpose, fulfilling that solution that you're seeking, I think people will join you.
Sure. So, and probably the best way to start off with is your seniors and juniors, whom you can probably, and like classmates whom you got ragged with together.
Yeah.
So you are the ones who can actually, you can easily convince and probably get them on board. All the other things like equity structures and things, that is something that you can probably push off till later, need not be right away to start off with. But so one of the things that they say is that any co-founder, you need to have some chemistry with them as well. Like,
Yeah,
can't be just like you pick up a random guy and you just start working with him.
that's
It
true.
needs to be more of a chemistry, because there will be lots of ups and downs, and there will be very difficult moments when you'll probably have to pat on each other's back and stay together. Yeah. So that's a critical aspect of finding your co-founders.
There's one more thing, Paresh, here is a lot of people, sometimes think that can we start alone?
Right.
Okay, a lot of youngsters think, okay, I'm not finding a co-founder. Shall we start alone? The answer to that is, starting alone is not a problem. You can and you should start alone. And once you build something, the chances are even higher that people would, once they see your vision in flesh and blood, they will come and join you. The only pitfall of starting alone is that there are times when you feel so dejected and so down on energy. It's very easy for you to give up.
Right.
Having a co-founder is always a boon, that you can actually go to him whenever you're feeling down, and the other person would inevitably try to lift you up.
Right.
So the basic underline of having a co-founder is that your chances of failure reduce to a large extent. Of course, you can you should start on your own as well if you don't find a co-founder. That should not be a prerequisite before starting a company.
Yeah. So don't wait to find a co-founder. Start working. As basically, there was one very good metaphor that I used to think about. Like, hey, if you are wanting to go for running every day morning, and like your mom and dad all will actually pull you back because you are disturbing their sleep, right? And you want to do an exercise, but you're waking up early morning, but you can't find people. So what happens is that if you keep doing it on a constant basis for quite some time, at some point of time, people, they will also start recognizing that, and you'll probably, when you're jogging, you'll find people who will actually accompany you and help you with as well. Like, they can just join and they can probably be your running partner every day. So that's the best way to start off with. Yeah, try finding, if you find people. Even otherwise, just start working. So another important part, another important aspect, Mandeep, I want you to specifically touch upon. We see a lot of companies not able to raise venture capital and VC investment. And you worked on the company for quite some time before you went on to raise a VC investment. And I think so Bloom was the first one, right?
Yeah.
So how did you rope in the first institutional investor? Because institutional investment is an entirely different ballgame. And at the same time, also throw some light upon what kind of companies actually VCs would like to invest in.
Okay. So I think from 2013, we had to, we built this company from scratch using our money. We got our first investment from Bessemer Venture Partners and Bloom Ventures. This was the Q1 of 2015. We started approaching the VCs somewhere around mid of 2014. The good thing with us was that we had a full functioning model. So we had paying customers, we had repeat customers. So there was actual business and P&L that a VC could look at. The way we went about it is we started going to, there were these events called Startup Saturdays, which were organized by Head Start. And there were some NASCOM events that, used to happen at that point. So we just started going there and meeting people from the VC community. And we realized that most of these VCs are very welcoming, because that's one of the major parts of their jobs is to scout for new businesses and deals. So they're always very open when some youngster wants to come and talk about their business idea. So we started talking to a lot of people. It took us a long time to actually, reach the right set of people that we wanted to connect with. There was a gentleman called Arpit from Bloom Ventures who we met, a few times in various events. And we pitched the idea to him end of 2014. And somehow they liked the idea. But we had to actually, invest a lot in the relationship. So you have to actually keep going out and meet a lot of people. There is one more way that you can send your pitch decks to the email IDs which are mentioned on the VC website, but typically they don't get you a lot of traction because there are hundreds and thousands of people who are actually sending emails. So two things that work is if in your friend circle or a network, somebody can give you an introduction to a VC, or if you meet them in these conferences or these startup talks, that helps. And that is how we came across Bloom, and then we convinced them on the business idea, and we raised our first check in 2015.
So can you touch upon a few things about what kind of companies that VCs usually look at? What sectors or what segments? And specifically in terms of recession, what are the areas that they would probably be interested in?
Well, I think, in the times of recessions like this currently, I mean, there would be a lot of businesses that will come out. I'm not an expert on that area, but I would just say that typically VCs look at businesses which have a very high upside in terms of consumer traction, or businesses which have longevity in terms of repetitive revenues over a long period of time. Typically, a VC is looking at least a 8 to 10x return on its investment. So if somebody puts in, say, $1 million in your firm, he would expect your company to give at least a 10x return, if not less, if not more. And that is why a lot of VCs invest in a lot of different businesses, and out of 10, only 2 or 3 are successful. But those successful businesses give them, say, 30x, 40x, or 50x return. So typically VCs will look at, first thing, are you solving any problem? Okay, is there a genuine problem that you're solving which the current market scenario is not solving? So that's the most important thing. The second most important thing is that have you proved, or you've proven your business idea in a way that there are customers who are willing to pay? Okay, so these are the two important things that the VCs look at. The third thing they look at is your team. How good is your team? What is the background of the team, and can they put their money behind people? Because initially they're putting money behind people and not the business in the first round. Okay, so these are the three things that typically VCs look at from my perspective. I think in the time of recession like this, healthcare companies are something which is going to be important. We as nation, or we as a world, have realized over the last couple of months that our healthcare systems are broken. We don't have enough hospitals, we don't have enough beds, we don't have enough doctors. So I think there is a lot of innovation that will and has to come in the healthcare sector, which I'm very much positive on. Apart from that, there would be a lot of research which will start happening in genetics and genome, because that's how we don't even know how the current coronavirus actually affects people. So a lot of businesses will be built in that direction. The third business that I'm really excited about is, I think, meat alternative businesses. A lot of people will change their dietary preferences after this. A lot of people may turn vegetarian. A lot of hue and cry will happen on the meat consumption across the world. There are a few companies who have done great job in alternate to meat, like Impossible Burger and so on and so forth. So there'll be a lot of businesses that will come in that sector as well. Apart from that, I think anything that can help people stay home, entertain them, give them insights on what's going in a different part of the world sitting here. A lot of such companies will come up. Of course, if I had a great idea, I would definitely go out and implement, but I don't right now. Right. But if people should think from the perspective of how their life has changed and what is that one problem that they're facing right now. And if they have to solve that problem, will there be people paying money for it?
So you touched upon a very important point, Mandeep. Basically, have something that people are ready to pay for, or basically people are ready to put their hard-earned either time or money into that product. That's where actually the traction comes in, right? So another important thing I probably want to adjust is maybe, hey guys, you just want to start up. It's though the sectors are coming in, you just don't probably want to start up in that segment just because it's hot or popular. You cannot just pick up that segment because hey, this is something that's going to be there. But anything, any idea that you're working on, definitely look out forward for something like, hey, this is going to be different post COVID. Say something like, if you're working on, hey, I need to build an activities startup or something. I'm not sure if that will happen. So you'll probably just to take a step back and think about how can this be done differently in the post COVID world where social distancing and other norms are going to be very important.
I also want to add one more thing, Paresh, here is that do not limit your thought process on COVID versus non-COVID or post-COVID. Okay, there are a lot of opportunities which will exist without this COVID scenario. I mean, there are so many examples in the world. Zoom, given one of the examples, when Zoom started, WebEx from Cisco was already there, right? But Zoom did it better.
Right.
When Gmail started, they were already, Hotmails and Yahoo Mails of the world, but Gmail did it better. When Google started, Yahoo search was already there. Right. So it's not always that you need to go out and, think of a completely new idea which nobody has done. Because trust me, there will be no idea in this world which nobody else has thought of before. Okay. If you have any idea, you search on internet, the chances are that somebody has thought about it, somebody has started a company around it. So there will never be a new idea. And if you still figure out a new idea, that's $1 billion company then and there. Right. And if you figured out a new idea which nobody has ever started or worked on, so there's $1 billion company then and there only. But in most of us cases, we just need to figure out ways of improvising on what is already there. So I just wanted to touch on this, that let's not limit ourselves that how the world will be post-COVID or not post-COVID. There'll be tremendous opportunities and ideas and businesses.
So this also reminds me that Y Combinator statement. They say that what is the one thing that's one insight that you have about the customer problem and you're solving it differently compared to anyone else. And if you just crack that, because every idea that you spoke about actually solve that problem in a different way. They did something very innovatively on that. And so innovation definitely plays a very important role there, I think. And one of the best things is also speak to customers, basically. That's something that find out from the customers on what they really want. Coming back to the another questions, like another important aspect I wanted to seek insights from you is, hey, you started fresh out of the college, right? And you started, you were a graduate, fresh entered into the management masters there, and then started off the company. And now you are running a company that's close to about 800 people strong. So how do you actually upskill yourself? And what are the skills that are required for running this company like that? How do you basically, as a CEO, what are the things that you make sure that you keep learning?
Well, I think on the job, you learn a lot of things. If you are fresh out of college, I think that's the best time to start, because you're not polluted by the management styles and management structures that you learn in any company. And I think if I look back at my journey, I was very fortunate that I did not work anywhere. So I had a fresh slate. I could do things the way I want. Now the question was, how do you upskill yourself? I think life teaches you every day. There will be scenarios where you won't know what's the right thing to do. And then, over the course of time, you would have a lot of mentors who you would have, connected to in the past. So I think that helps you, keep talking to a lot of people. Then the other most important thing that I learned is that when you are building any business, just hire the best talent and let them do their job. So your job as a CEO is not solving problems yourself. You sell your vision, you sell the way you want this business to happen, and you hire the best of minds and let them do the work. You really don't need a lot of, learning outside of the learning that the life teaches you over the first 21, 22 years. And I think you can take on any job. So my take on it is, just if you have an idea and you want to start something, just jump in and do it right now, rather than waiting and thinking that first I'll get some experience or some management style and then I'll do it.
Sure.
And over the course of time, you keep reading books, you keep coming across life situations where you find solutions. Most of the times you will be wrong. Most of the times you will screw up. But hey, that's okay. That's how life is. When you fail, you screw up, you learn, and you move forward.
Right. So another important aspect that I wanted to check with you. Hey, in India, at least parents play a crucial role while you start up, because
Yes.
The expectation is that, hey, I would probably want my son to work in a company, and probably there was a joke that says that someone says, hey, I'm working in Google, and his mom asks, hey, can't you get a job in TCS? So what is that like? How did you convince your parents? And if someone has to start off with, and he has to convince his parents today, what do
I
you?
think that's a very important factor. I think your family has to be very supportive. Because if you don't have support from your family, it's very difficult to sustain yourself. It's very difficult to go out and build or work on your idea, because when you're coming back home and you get to hear a lot of different things, I think it's not going to help you.
Right.
The only way that you can convince your parents is, look, they are your parents. They are looking out for your best interest. If, as I say again and again, if you have a purpose and a problem that you're trying to solve, you will be able to convince your parents. Because if you can't convince your parents, it'll be very difficult to convince the customer who's going to pay for your product. So I think you can and you should be able to convince your parents, unless you have a lot of responsibilities to fulfill, unless you have a lot of financial responsibilities to fulfill. I think that in that case, each one of us has a different way of looking at things. But if you don't have any financial issues, if you don't have to immediately go out and earn bread for the family, I think most parents are, in today's age, most parents are educated enough. The most parents understand the value of startups. Not like back in 2009 when startups was not in thing. Not a lot of people knew this word entrepreneurship or startup. But today things have changed. There are success stories around. There are people who are successful. So I think it's not that difficult if you sincerely make an effort and show them that there's a significant problem that I'm trying to solve. Most parents should be able to support you, but it is very important.
Yes, I actually have a very when you said, right, like say dad usually said to me when I entered into Niti, I used to show him that, hey, Niti has 100% placement, and he still teases me saying that you are the one who didn't come without a job. So that always says. So what I had a quick hack there. What I used to tell my dad was when I wanted to really start up, first 6 to 10 months were very difficult actually. Me always convincing is very difficult. So one thing I remember, I still remember telling him that if I probably fail and I have to close this shop, whatever I'm building, I'm sure that there will be someone who would want to hire me and make him manage their shop.
Yeah,
So,
that's very important. Yeah,
I may not be a CEO, but I would probably be hired as a CXO in some other company. And that was something that I told him. And yeah, somewhere that was a good answer for. I felt like so मुझे ये अच्छा लगा कि I was something I gave a really good answer to my dad. So that's something
that's important, I think. And if you have a entrepreneurial experience, a lot of companies value you. Absolutely. And if someone comes to interview at our company and he has an entrepreneurial experience, we really value that candidate. So yeah, it's very important.
And today, most of the companies actually look out for entrepreneurial experience and failed startups. Back then, it was not true. So we have just 10 minutes left. We'll quickly go through some questions and questions from people. So yeah, this is what kind of jobs will emerge after COVID is over? That's one of the first top questions, and there are 14 awards for that. Your take on that?
Well, I think a lot of entertainment companies will emerge. A lot of gaming companies will find a lot of buyers in India. I'm sure a lot of us sitting at home are playing a lot of games and watching a lot of entertainment stuff. So that segment is going to grow tremendously for sure. Then healthcare, as I said earlier, will see a lot of jobs getting developed. Apart from that, I think companies which assist work from home kind of scenario, companies like Zoom, companies like remotely, if you could manage the workforce or work, a lot of things, a lot of those things will emerge. Apart from that, I don't think that the world is going to change so drastically that the normal jobs which are there today will not exist. But for sure, there'll be newer opportunities. And my take would be entertainment, healthcare, gaming. These three will see a lot of takers going forward.
That's an interesting question by Jatin. So he says, does this mentors that you pick up, do they take share in your company? Is it natural for someone to first help you
So
out?
if any mentor is asking for shares in your company, run away. Just run away, because I think his interest is not aligned. What I've seen is most mentors do it for the love of what they do, for the love of humanity, for the love of sharing their knowledge. The moment somebody says that I'm going to mentor you, give you my 2 cents, but I need X amount of share in your company, just move out. That's my personal opinion. I mean, don't give any shares to anybody. It's your hard-earned thing. That's the most important thing that you will own over your journey. Don't give it for just knowledge and gyan from somebody.
Yeah. So is it advisable to invest after lockdown? That's from Mr. Venu.
Sorry, can you go ahead? The question, is it
So
advisable?
is it advisable to invest after lockdown?
Invest after lockdown?
Yeah. So will you see investments coming in after lockdown? Can you just quickly give an idea about?
Well, I think investments will happen, but a lot of private equity players or VCs that I've spoken to are very cautious right now. Everybody's saving money for their existing portfolio companies. Since most of them have their existing portfolio companies, they are keeping a significant portion of their funds to just put bridge rounds in those companies. So there will be a lot of follow-on rounds or bridge rounds that will happen in the existing portfolio. In the newer segment, I think, see, at the end of the day, if the business is really attractive, there will be investment, but it will take a lot of time for the investment sentiment to come back. People are very cautious. And I think this lockdown is going to go on till end of June for most of the cities in our country. So still, I mean, there is a long way for us to go. So I won't see the VCs or private equity players getting very active before last quarter of this year, which is like October, November, December is where we will see some action coming back again, but not before that.
Sure. So there's one question that was posted earlier during our registrations, that's specifically from a professor. We have quite a number of professors also in the discussion. So he was asking, how can actually colleges support their student entrepreneurs? What can they really do to support their student entrepreneurs?
Well, I think professors have a great role to play. If we can make the education a lot practical and give students liberty to build their ventures while they are in college, I think that will help a lot. Second, if the college can provide an incubation facility, that really helps. It may sound very small, but I think the incubation center that we were a part of helped us a lot in saving costs. We had an office to go to. We didn't have any expenses which we had to put out as rent or electricity bill, etc. So this is really helpful. So if you can build an incubation scenario, an incubation facility, that is very helpful. I've seen a lot of colleges are now coming up with entrepreneurship courses. Those are going to be very helpful, and if you could rope in a lot of existing entrepreneurs to come in and interact with students, I think that will help. So 3 things: make learning more practical, invest in some kind of incubation facility in your center, in your college, and finally, if you could promote a healthy interaction with entrepreneurs, and your students, I think these three things would be good starting block, building blocks to give a lot of insights to people.
Sure. So to add on to what Mandeep said, there are a few things that you must, like all the professors, you must have read that AICT has startup policy specifically for colleges, wherein there are things that are proposed in the startup policy. That's like something like 1% of the entire student fee actually can go towards an incubation fund, which actually can be invested in startups. So 1% can come from there. One other important thing that they suggest is you can actually provide, one is definitely lenience. Basically students actually can go out because students also learn a lot during this projects or the startups they're working. You can go easy with their attendance systems or anything that they do. Also another important part is maybe allow them to take up these projects with startups as their official projects, because basically I think Mandeep also submitted your own project as a live project, right? So even I submitted my project for the final year as a startup idea. Like I worked on the so basically what happened was I worked on my startup idea for about 6 months to set up a food chain. It did not work out, and then I went back to my strength, that was web development company. But like that was I was able to put that same project as a entire project report. So allow students to take up that, encourage the students to take up that actually. And another important aspect, I think we are in alumni space, so definitely alumni alumni entrepreneurs are the ones who can actually engage and contribute. And probably if 1% can actually come from alumni to set up small incubation center, that would be really great. So one of the things that you can engage with there again. So these are a few things that you as professor at a college can actually take up helping the students with. Sure. And one question again, why is that 99% of the startups in India fail? Is there something compared to China and US? Is there something different in their ecosystem versus our ecosystem?
No, I don't have statistics on that. I think 87.3% fail as compared to 99. But see, at the end of the day, there will be failures and there will be people who would be successful. I don't think there is any difference in a particular country or so. I think India is one of the most promising places to start up today. Of course, the government support and the financial support is much better in, say, Silicon Valley. But I think today, as in the last one decade of what I have seen, the things have changed tremendously. So I don't think we need to, worry about these random figures of 99% people fail or not. We are here to look at success only. Let's not think about that 99% failure. We need to begin our journey with saying that, I will be successful come what may.
Sure.
That's all. Okay. So I don't think we should compare any different ecosystems right now. This is our reality and we have to build in this reality.
Perfect. So I think we are almost on time. It's almost 5 o'clock. There are a lot of questions. Probably will. So guys, any questions that you have, you can just write out an email to us, and then we'll try to see if we can answer those ones. And if any student needs some help, we are the entire webinar is actually partnered with the Vaave Foundation for their NEN as well. So they would be getting their mentors to answer our questions if required. So you need any help, you can actually always reach out to us. Yeah, I think Mandeep, we can close. I'll just take some thank you remarks. Would that be good?
Thank you so much.
Any closing comments from you?
Well, I was actually looking at the list of questions, and there are a lot of questions I would love to answer.
Anything that you want to pick up?
Yeah. There are like many questions. There's a guy, Muhammad Umar Raza, who says, what if my idea gets copied if I, go on and share my idea to someone to make him my partner? That's a dilemma a lot of kids actually have, that, everybody wants to keep their idea close to their chest. And I've realized that at the end of the day, it's not about the idea. It's about the execution. If you have the grit to go out and execute it, nobody can take any idea from you. Ideas are dime a dozen. So don't worry. Just share your idea to as many people as you want. Trust me, all you would get is feedback, comments from which you can learn, and people who would be ready to collaborate with you. Okay, so don't worry about sharing ideas.
Share your feedback there. Right. So before we close the session, I would like to thank all our partners, Vaave Foundation, NEN, Basically, they've been tremendous helping us to reach out to all the student and college sales, as well as My Startup TV, who is going to stream live, is a media partner for us. Thank you again. And again, my alma mater, NITI, both Mandeep and me studied there. NITI Alumni Association has been very helpful. The student team has been able to help us a lot in pulling off this entire thing together. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Mandeep.